Hello, welcome, Cabbage here. In Nier Reincarnation, let's do another fashion check. We'll finish up the New Year's costumes. Before we did Noelle and Gale. Here let's do 063Y and Leon. And they're all wearing kind of variations of kimono. Kimono is an interest of mine, so I thought it would be fun to do videos, fashion checks of these guys. And I think I've decided on the format for how I want to do these videos going forward. I want to do videos of certain characters, not all characters. Like this might be the only time that I talk about 063Y, because a lot of his costumes are kind of futuristic. I want to talk about clothing that's more rooted in history, which is what I know more of anyway. Like Leon here, for example, I want to make fashion check videos of him. I want to do one video where like I cover their handout versions, so like 2-star or 3-star or Dark Memory. And then I want to do another video where I talk about their banner units. And then the reason why I'm doing that is because I can make the handout videos now because I have them. But the banner videos, there's some that I'm missing. Like with Griff, I don't have Bloody and Fractured Griff, so I have to wait until I get those versions before making that video. But I could make Griff's handout video right away. But for now, let's finish this New Year's theme. Let's talk about Leon first. Alright, he is wearing pretty traditional kimono, and then over that he is wearing a hakama, kind of that poofy thing in the bottom half of him, and then over that he is wearing a coat. This coat is not kind of like Japanese style. It's kind of Japanese influenced, but it's not really Japanese style. It's not a haori coat. So we'll talk about that last. We'll talk about his kind of more Japanese aspects first. Okay, but let's zoom in on the kimono, which we can't see very much of actually. But it's the gray, that flat gray part on his chest, and then he's wearing a kind of a white inner robe. We see that in the V area below his neck, and then below that he's wearing a more Western turtleneck, mock turtleneck maybe. But yeah, flat gray, that's very typical for what you see in men's kimono. Unfortunately, they usually wear very kind of solid, subdued colors, like khaki green, or tan, or brown, or gray like we see here, or like some kind of shade of blue. It's kind of boring, but as a man, if you wear bright colors or like patterns, then people will think that you're wearing women's clothes, which is too bad. I like to wear bright colors and patterns. I have one men's kimono. It's a solid blue, not very interesting. But for a first kimono, that's a good choice, easy to match, easy to wear, so yeah, that's a good starting point. Okay, next let's talk about his bottom half. This is the hakama. This is a very kind of a full, flowing part of the outfit, and you wear this over the kimono. The kimono, it still goes down to the ankles, but it's totally covered by this. Let's zoom out. Okay, so yeah, we can see the whole thing here. This is actually worn a little shorter than your average hakama. The height of where it hits the body would be right at the ankle bone, and like it would kind of graze the top of your feet. But Leon seems to be wearing it shorter here, probably to up the androgyny factor, so that it looks a little bit more like a full skirt rather than a hakama. And then I said in the previous video that there's only one length for a kimono. That's true for women. It's not true for men. For men, they make different sizes. So you can buy the kimono, which has the right arm length, which is the right length down to your ankle. Because men, they don't do the thing where they tuck under the length of the kimono to go with the length of their body. And then same for hakama, they'll sell different lengths for this. So Leon, he's wearing a little bit of a shorter length hakama than normally would be prescribed for him. Okay, and then we'll look at this bow that's tied here in the front. This is made up of 4 different kind of ropes that come from the hakama. You have 2 coming from the back, 2 coming from the front, And then from the front, they kind of curve around your back and then come back to the front. And then you tie all the four together, and then you end up with this bow-looking thing. Usually it ends up like a cross. You got like the two parts coming out the sides, and then one part coming out, top and bottom. But here we have two coming out the bottom, so my guess is probably the top part is taken to the bottom so that we can get more kind of a bow-looking thing. And then there's actually a little bit of a pattern on this hakama. That's kind of unusual for men. The pattern on 063Y is actually more common for hakama on men. And then the footwear, this is pretty standard. But if we look at like the illustration, it looks a little bit more kind of futuristic than your average tabi, which is that sock. But yeah, looks-wise, from a distance, that's pretty standard. Okay, next let's talk about this coat and then how it is not really Japanese. It's not a haori coat. The biggest thing was the sleeve, the way that the sleeves look. So a haori coat, it has kind of a very similar sleeve to the kimono itself. And so if you were to hold your arm out at a 90-degree angle, you would see like a square, all 90 degrees with the sleeve construction. But here we actually see kind of a sloping to the armhole. So that is not that's not a Japanese touch to that sleeve of the coat. That is more of a Western touch. And maybe the most interesting thing to me is the opening of this sleeve. Because if we look in there, we actually can't see the kimono sleeve, which is that sort of light gray color. It's all just black and white in there. And then furthermore, if we get in closer, we have this cuff around the wrist. Where is that coming from? Because that's not coming from the kimono. It might be coming from that mock turtleneck that he's wearing underneath the kimono, but then it's a color change there. But actually we can see a bit of black right around the wrist there. That's probably coming from the mock turtleneck from underneath the kimono there. So that white cuff might actually be part of the coat itself, sort of a mock sleeve there. And then maybe the sleeves of the light gray kimono are just kind of tucked behind all of that, just hidden somewhere. But there are kind of Japanese elements present on this coat. Oh, actually, looking at it now, with the motion partway through, we are seeing a 90-degree angle there. Coming off the sleeve, but then it tapers to the armhole, which is not Japanese, so it's kind of Japanese. All right. And then we see a fur collar around here. That's definitely not typical for a haori coat. But we do see the two, there's a black diamond there on the front there. Let's see if there's some on the back. Yeah, there's some on the sleeve there too. It's a little bit bigger than you would usually see. And then on the back, we can see kind of a black diamond there in the center. I talked about in the previous video, I showed Gail's kimono, and then depending on how many of those seals we see, that's the most formal or the least formal. Gail, I did not see any at all, so that was a casual kimono. But here actually I see 5 points, 1 on the back, 2 on the shoulders, and then 2 on the sleeves, which is the highest formality. But then this is a more kind of a Western style coat. So I would not consider this too formal. This is more just kind of a reference to that, maybe. All right, we see some tassels on the back here. That's not typical. And then a lot of kind of angular lines throughout the coat. This is more kind of a Western tailored look, whereas with a kimono, it's all 90-degree angles. And then if you were to lay this flat on the ground, if you were to lay a Japanese style garment on the ground, it would just lay totally flat. Whereas a tailored garment would have a little bit of a structure, a little bit of a life to it if you laid it flat. Okay, thank you, Leon. All right, next, let's talk about 063Y. He's kind of a weird amalgamation of things. Again, kind of a mix of Western and Eastern. So if we look kind of closely at him, we can't see that he's wearing a kimono anywhere. Maybe the closest thing is the pants that he's wearing, kind of the hakama pants. But as we can see, there's a lot of space in between his two legs. So this is not a true hakama. This is more of an actual kind of a poofy pants. Maybe you might see it on like a kabuki actor. They use their legs very much when they're acting, so you do want that separation between left and right leg. And then this kind of a thing that he's wearing on top, this kind of reminds me of a Shinto priest, maybe especially from the Heian era, where they wear sort of things over a kimono. But there's lots of things that are not like your typical Japanese style. So like buckles on the shoulders there, rings on the sleeves, that's kind of unusual. And then this is a hood in the back. That's also not very Japanese. But we do see that ring, that kind of golden ring in the back there. That might be a reference to the family seal. And then we got this black thing here. I don't know. Maybe that's a reference to kendo. They wear sort of a protective thing in their front there. It's also usually black, I think. And then this big tie in the front. I'm not sure what that is either. One interesting thing is this hand covering. Let's see if I can get him to show that off. But usually... Oh, there we go. Yeah, we can see it's not a glove. It doesn't cover the palm of the hand. It just covers kind of the forearm and then the back of the hand. What that is for is that usually people wear that underneath some other kind of heavier or like less comfortable piece of equipment or wear, like a gauntlet, like a samurai or a ninja would wear. My feeling is that the artist, the designer for this costume, added that just for some kind of like visual balance. So it wasn't just a big white thing against the hand. If you add a little bit of black in there, you get a bit more contrast, the black and the white. Maybe the same thing, maybe the same choice was made for this kind of a black inner that he's wearing. But yeah, contrast, that can be important. Like when you're wearing a suit, you know, I feel you want to have the cuffs of the shirt showing around the sleeve, just for a visual balance, top and bottom. And then we can see the boots here. It's a fairly common thing for women, especially when they're graduating from college, to wear boots with hakama. That was a trend that I think started in the Taisho era in Japan. That was around 1910, 1920. This was when Western culture was really making itself known in Japanese culture. There was a lot of Western sort of inventions coming into the country at that time, like motor cars or radio or film, you know, movie theaters. And then the way that this manifested in Japanese clothing was that people would mix kind of Western elements with their kimono. So like on Rion, we see the mock turtleneck underneath the kimono, or we see the boots here under the kind of the poofy pants of 063Y, or people would wear like fedoras on top of their kimono. Unfortunately, that was a practice that was kind of lost to history. I think it's a cool look to mix and match, and in some cases it's more practical. But you look at some recent kimono design, kind of younger designers or younger wearers, they will add a lot of Western kind of accessories, like hats or gloves or footwear or lace or other kinds of things. Okay, thank you, 063Y, you may rest now. Okay, so that was a look at men's kimono from the New Year's characters. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again. Take care.